Hello, everybody, and welcome. I hope you can hear me. Give me a Y in the chat if you can hear me and you can see me. Brilliant. Okay, that's wonderful. It's fantastic that you're here this evening. I'm really pleased that you're here. To be honest, I've been slightly taken by surprise by the number of people who have signed up. Which is very nice, but I'm very glad to see every single one of you. So what we're going to do, I have got some slides that I've prepared just to help me talk through what we have available. Before we make a start, could you let me know in the chat, firstly, what year group you're here thinking about? So if you've got more than one child, you might put more than one year group in the chat, and the kind of help that you think you're looking for. So the three areas that we help with generally are study skills, university application, particularly personal statements, and Oxbridge. So if you can just let me know in the chat what year group, specifically what you're looking for help with out of study skills, university entrance, and Oxbridge, then that will really help me to know where I can spend the most time productively for you this evening. Okay, everything that I'm seeing so far is about study skills, which is fantastic, which means that we can be a whole lot more focused this evening. Okay, you keep sharing that with me. Oh, we've got another person to let in, and I will find my slides. Just a sec. It's been so long over the summer holidays since I've done this on a regular basis that I've forgotten what I'm doing. Here we are. So share. Here we are. Okay, and I will put it on present. Okay, so you can see on here that we have these three ways of working with this. And I've already told you about those, so I will move on. Just a sec, I just want to make sure I can see everything. There we go. So the three ways of working with this are study skills coaching through either the Extraordinaries Club or one-to-one coaching, the personal statement support, or Oxbridge preparation. But you're all telling me that you are interested in study skills. Have I got anybody, Helen, who is saying anything other than study skills? No. Okay, cool. That means we can be very focused. Brilliant. So why has it gone there? Oh, it's because I'm at the end, not the beginning. Right, here we are. So firstly, we'll talk about the Extraordinaries Club, okay, because everything builds on the Extraordinaries Club. If you want one-to-one coaching, you get access to the Extraordinaries Club. So the basic premise of the Extraordinaries Club is that you join as a family to learn how to study effectively, stop the nagging and arguments, and reach your academic potential. And the reason that I set up the Extraordinaries Club was because that I saw how effective it was for families to learn this stuff together and basically learn to be singing from the same hymn sheet, so that it basically neutralized all the nagging and all that kind of thing that can happen in a household. And the number of families who have said to me, you know, they just sort out disagreements about how things should be done study-wise by saying, Lucy says, you know, it's just this neutral voice who and you can just follow what I say, basically. So how it works is the first thing you do in the Extraordinaries Club is work through the study skills modules, and there are 10 modules, And there's a parent version and a student version of each of the modules. So basically, the student version tells the student what they need to do. And they cover things like organisation, motivation, time management, mindset, good study habits. And then we've got 3 on revision, which are how to plan your revision, revision techniques, and how to actually do your revision, like how to stop yourself from getting bored and how to just stop the distractions and all that kind of thing. Then we've got one that we call Love Your Learning, which is about going a bit deeper with your learning. And the last one is called Ace Your Exams, and it's about exam season and how to really stay your best and give your best in exam season in a kind of healthy and balanced way. So the student one tells the student what to do, but the parent one shows the parent how to support the student. So they kind of go side by side with each other as well. We also have how to revise masterclasses. So these are for specific subjects at specific levels. So we started out by adding GCSE masterclasses to the club, and we've got all the core subjects like English, English literature, maths, the sciences, and we've got French and Spanish, history, geography. Can't remember if there are any others off the top of my head, but we've basically got all the core academic subjects. And then we've got quite a few A-level ones as well. So we've got A-level maths, English literature, history, economics, and EPQ. And then we've got the sciences, so chemistry, biology, and physics. And people say they love these about the club because they teach an approach to revision for each subject. So they don't teach you the content, but they teach you how to cope with the content. And so they really empower students to be able to, you know, really get to grips with each of their subjects and really know the subject specific details about how to revise each of those subjects. During term time, in the club, we have weekly term time group coaching calls, and they're alternate weeks for just parents and just students. And each week, we tend to focus on a recent module that we've worked through in the club, or we focus on something topical and helpful for the students. And I generally send out a success sheet in advance, which gives some kind of open-ended coaching questions that we work through and help students, well, and parents, to have kind of aha moments and realizations and that kind of thing. But you can also ask questions on the coaching calls and get kind of all the support that you need. Then we've got a Facebook group for parents to ask questions in between calls. And we've got a library of a whole load of other resources like revision plan outlines, and we've got a exam technique masterclass. We've got one about self-care and that kind of thing. So well, we try to make it very holistic in how it helps. So the club on its own, without any one-to-one coaching, is £64 per month or £512 for the year, which is basically getting 12 months for the price of 8 months. Okay, so I just wanted to share with you some successes from the club. Okay, and so this is a success. So recently, it was only last week, wasn't it? Time seems to be going very fast at the moment. But this young man's mum sent me this email, and she said, I just wanted to let you know that we received Ben's GCSE results yesterday, where he got 4 9s, 2 8s, and 4 7s. We are really proud of his achievements, especially under the circumstances of lockdown that affected his mental health quite badly. I tried a few different study skill tutors without success. So when we saw your programme on Facebook, I thought we'd give it a try as we had nothing to lose. We followed your weekly sessions meticulously, and it really helped focus Ben's mind on what he needed to do to achieve the grades, the best grades, and how to organise his files, manage his time, and prepare himself for exams by going through lots of exam papers. I am sure he will take a lot of what he's learnt going forward into A-levels and will definitely recommend your programme to friends. So that is a reflection of somebody. And actually, this young man was dyslexic, and his mum, I remember, was really kind of tearing her hair out when she first came to us about, you know, how to get him the help and support. he needs. Okay. So another example is, this was from a year 13 student who's, she's just finished her exams. So her mum said, since joining the group, it has given my daughter and I a focus to work on together. Whether it's been doing the modules, watching the coaching calls, or doing the revision masterclass, my daughter now has a lot more motivation since joining the club. It has opened up a dialogue about schoolwork and studying between us. I feel I am able to support her more and not just nag about homework. We would highly recommend joining Extraordinaries Club and wished we had joined sooner. Okay, I can see a lot of questions coming up. Helen, do you think it would be a good time to take some questions about the club before we move on?
I've actually, because you're in full flow, I've actually been putting some answers in the chat as we've been going along. So anybody who is just kind of watching the chat, we've had some questions about, will this help a child develop a growth mindset? Because we currently have a fixed mindset student. So Lucy.
This is a very common problem, and yes, it will. I'll give you an example of a girl who came to us when she was in year 10. She has now finished year 12, but she didn't go on to do A-levels. She went on to do a vocational course, but she was a member for 2 years. She came to us in year 10 with a very, very, very fixed mindset about maths. She'd been telling herself for years and years and years that she was bad at maths. And I think she came into year 10 expecting to get a grade 3 in maths. And so we've really worked with her on mindset around maths. She had already had a maths tutor, but she just had this really fixed, closed down mindset towards the subject. She watched the How to Revise Maths masterclass, which gave her more ideas about how to revise maths than she was getting from her tutor, who, from what she told me, was also quite closed mindset about how to go about things. But long story short, she came out with a grade 6 at the end. So she went up 3 grades basically just by changing her mindset. And she, all through time, like all the major milestones along the way, she kept getting amazing feedback from her teachers. Like, she did one test, I think, around the Christmas of year 11, and she got the feedback from her teachers that hers was the standout paper that they'd had in their class. So that's an example of how we work with students on their mindset. But mindset is a key module, but I would say it's addressed with every single coaching call as well. And I think people come along to the coaching calls to get that boost of motivation and that kind of mindset refresh, if you like, and they always go away a lot more motivated and, you know, open to doing things in a different way once they leave. So I hope that was helpful.
Now, just when we're on the idea of motivation and people leaving with that boost, we've had a couple of parents say, how would we as parents encourage or recommend our children to be interested in the club?
That's a good one. I get that one all the time. So I have got a video which I can send you, which several people have said has really helped. The big thing I would say to young people is that revision is a skill, and study skills are those skills that you are not born with. But it can feel like when you're going through the education system that you are just expected to know how to revise, how to study, and all that kind of thing. And a lot of young people get kind of in this trap where school's saying, revise this, parents are saying, why aren't you doing your revision? And they go on the defensive because they don't know how to revise. And, you know, they feel in this trap between home and school, who are expecting them all to do this thing, but they don't know how to do. And they don't really know how to turn around and say to anybody, but I don't know how to do it, because they feel like they are expected that it's expected that they already know how to do it. So I think the biggest thing to say to them is there is absolutely no shame in not being completely up to speed with your study skills. It's incredibly common. And one of the most common things that people say to me about the coaching calls is, I feel like I'm not alone anymore. And that goes for both students and parents, that they just hadn't realized that there was so many other people out there who were struggling with the same struggles. The other big thing I'd say, and one of the biggest objections people have to joining, is the amount of time it will take to take part. And it will take some time to work through the modules, but ultimately that is going to save huge amounts of time studying in the wrong way. And it's going to save a huge amount of heartache and stress as well. So really, it's better to get this stuff, get these skills and put them to good use as soon as you possibly can, because that's going to save you time and give you confidence and, you know, assurance. I mean, so many people have said to me that, you know, finally they can be confident that what they're doing is the right thing, and they stop second guessing how they're revising and all that kind of thing, because they're getting it from an expert and they are they're seeing the results of doing it the way that I'm teaching them to do it. So, you know, they do tests, they do mocks, they get teacher feedback all the way along, and all of that is positive reinforcement that what they're learning in the club is having a positive benefit on how they're doing. And well, we did a survey of club members in July, and practically everybody said, when I asked the question, what would you say to somebody thinking about joining the club? And practically everybody said, join now, we wish we joined sooner, because you can put that knowledge and stuff to work from now rather than waiting 6 weeks or 8 weeks or a term or however long it is, that kind of thing. Okay, Helen.
Yes, yeah, just one question again off the back of that, really, in terms of what's in the club and what we do. Leanne's asked, do you work with different learning techniques?
Yes. So the first thing I say about that is that the club provides a framework for students to basically put together a study system that works for themselves. So there are lots of elements that they can personalize. And I really encourage students to reflect on how they work and use that kind of self-knowledge to develop their ways of working that work for them. And one of the key ways we do that is by thinking about what kind of learning works for them. We also, that in the revision techniques module, give students a lot of proven ways of revising that have been proven by research to work really effectively. So we teach certain ways of working, but we also encourage a lot of self-reflection so that students really take on, that they become the directors of their own learning. So they come to us to get that initial framework, but by working with us, they develop that confidence to be the directors of the way that they learn, because they can see what's working, what isn't working, and they've got the confidence to make those decisions and follow through on them themselves. Okay.
Just one thing, because I think it's come up a couple of times in the chat in terms of coaching calls. Now, just to be clear, that we talk about coaching calls for group coaching calls and coaching calls for one-to-one clients. So Lucy, I don't know if you can expand on that.
Yeah, so as a member of the Extraordinaries Club, you get the weekly term time coaching calls. They're on Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. And so basically in this slot each week during term time. And they alternate between student and parent calls. They are group calls. Now, in a minute, I will talk about the one-to-one coaching that we offer. One-to-one, you get your coach, Helen, who is being my trusty assistant this evening, is one of our coaches. She's our lead coach. And if you would like one-to-one coaching, you'll get to have a conversation with Helen to set that up. But all our one-to-one clients also get access to everything that's in the Extraordinaries Club. So one-to-one is clearly much more intensive on our time and resources. So it is a different kind of level of investment. But you know, it's one-to-one. So that's the difference, really. Does that answer that question?
It does, and in terms of the kind of how many students are on a coaching call, I think one-to-one is exactly what it says on the tin. With the group coaching calls, I've certainly found that it varies depending on the time of year. So in the lead up to exams, we get many more students. When quiet times, we will get fewer. So I don't know, Lucy, what's the kind of average number, would you say?
It's really hard to put an average on it, but what I would say is that I've designed the coaching calls so it doesn't actually matter what the number is. So in the beginning, I used to, when we have very low numbers in the club, I used to work around and try and speak to everybody, but actually not everybody wants to talk. And so sometimes you got in an awkward situation where people were just wanting to listen. So what we do now is that each coaching call has a theme, and we send out what I call a success sheet, which has questions that we will focus on for that session. So I'll ask a question, and then people will get to reflect on that and write answers on their success sheet. You can also, we make it so that you can write on it on the computer as well. And then I'll ask people to just put a summary of what they've written in the chat. And when people put something in the chat that I think is really beneficial for everybody to kind of hear about in more depth, I'll ask people to come on the microphone, and we'll have a mini coaching session on the microphone, and everybody will then learn from that, because so many of the things that come up are common to lots of so many people. It's not often anymore that people bring anything that's new to me. So I'm careful about who I choose to come on the microphone, so that it's a learning opportunity for everybody, basically. So that's how we make it, so that it doesn't really matter how many people are on the call. Everybody will gain from being on the call. And actually, I think a lot of people gain hugely from it being a group, because they very much get this sense that they are not alone, that they're not the freak who can't do the thing that they're trying to do, which a lot of people are going round and round in their heads saying to themselves, why can't I do this? There must be something wrong with me, and all that kind of thing. They get to see that they're one of many, and actually it's not so bad, and there are solutions and all that kind of thing. So I hope that explains it and answers that.
One of our parents has brought up the point that their particular daughter would be a little bit wary of being compared to other people, wouldn't be one to put on the spot or so. And I think the idea of how much is shared really depends on what the steer we get from the student. So you'll notice at the moment that some people are sending me private messages, some people are sending public messages. We always say, if we get a private message, we know that student doesn't want to be identified, and we'll deal with that particular query very sensitively and anonymously. Some students will put it in the chat to everybody, so you can see that particular student's asked that question. We have some students who very much kind of prefer to lurk and take the solidarity side of it. And certainly people have said to me afterwards, it was just really nice to hear that I wasn't the only one. You get some students who come with us very specific, I'd like to ask this, having seen how it works. So nobody is ever made to feel like they're put on the spot, uncomfortable. And we're very, very aware of kind of young people's sensitivities and concerns and anxiety like that.
Yeah. And, I tend to ask at the beginning, is there anybody who's just listening? And, ask people to put in the chat that they're just listening. And, there can be quite a lot going on in the chat, so sometimes I forget. But if people don't want to come on the microphone, they can just say in the chat, and that's absolutely fine. There is no compulsion. Of course, we do need some people to come on the chat, otherwise you'll just be listening to me doing a monologue, which isn't quite as instructive. But if people really don't want to, then that is absolutely fine, and we're just happy for them to listen and learn that way.
Okay. Lucy, we've got a couple more questions come up in the chat. Would you like to take those in a moment, or would you like to answer them now?
Are they to do with the club?
They are to do with the club.
Okay,
indeed.
let's do them now.
Okay, so one is says, how do the individual subject masterclasses focus on each subject, and are these one-to-one?
So the individual subject masterclasses, they were all initially done, well, nearly all initially done live Okay, so they were on a Zoom session, a bit like this one, with a subject expert. And so a group of students came along and it was recorded live. It's basically a subject expert saying how to approach revision for that subject. So, for example, I did the GCSE geography one because I was a geography teacher. And so I gave specific examples about how to revise geography case studies. So I didn't teach a geography case study because you just get one case study if I did that, but I showed you how to break down a case study to make it more memorable, but also using that breakdown so that it was more useful when you're actually answering exam questions to get more marks. And so it's very similar for other subjects, like for the GCSE maths one. She talks about things like how to use the calculator to save you time and get more marks in the exam. And the GCSE English ones give you kind of formulas for answering the different types of questions in the GCSE papers. So they're very specific to the subject. They're all pre-recorded, unless, you know, we'll have more live ones coming this year to add to the ones that we've got in the club. And so you can come along to those live, but the thesis, the idea behind them is that you are taught how to approach that subject at that level very, very specifically. So you go away with the tools and you're like, oh, now I get it. That's how I remember all these case studies. Or, oh, now I understand how I'm going to get to remember all these physics equations or whatever it is.
Okay. So just sticking with the subject of masterclasses, do we have a list somewhere with all the ones we've done?
I think
there is one somewhere.
I think there is on the page where you sign up, but I can't remember if it's fully up to date. So I'll just try to tell you off the top of my head. So for GCSE, we've got maths, English language, English literature. For science, we've got physics, chemistry, and biology, but we've got two others for GCSE science. One is called Foundations of Science, which is about making sure students are up to speed from Key Stage 3 science, because there's a lot of assumed knowledge from Key Stage 3 for GCSE science. And the other one is about the experimental techniques questions that are in the exam papers that a lot of students really struggle with. So there's 5 masterclasses for GCSE science. Then we've got history and geography and French and Spanish. And I think that's all of them for GCSE at the moment. And then for A-level, we've got English, which Helen did, maths, history, biology, EPQ, which Helen did, and lots of people have been in touch to say they got A stars after doing that. She's trying not to look too
I know, I'm looking smug. That's fine. I'll quite happily look smug.
Chemistry, physics. Did I say economics already?
No.
Economics.
Okay.
I think that might be all of them.
Whilst you're racking your brain, Lucy, one parent's asked, we're based in Scotland, so will these masterclasses not be relevant? Now, if I kind of start with that and you add in anything, in terms of the subject-specific skills, it's not that we're teaching, well, it's not that we're teaching subject content, and we're not teaching to any one exam board, because, for example, with the English A-level one, I know that, you know, some people are doing international A-level, some people are doing the A-level. There's all the different exam boards out there that all handle the assessment objectives differently. So what each person's tried to do, what each expert's tried to do, is to look at the kind of exam skills that come up in the type of paper you're getting. So if you've got a paper that's set in Scotland, then it's not going to be looking at skills foundations, which are, you know, a million miles removed, and it's not teaching to a specific specification to say, look, you know, paper 1, question 3 will always do this. So I would think from my perspective, and Lucy jump in, that it is because it's skills and it's revision skills and it's doing that kind of empowering thing, it would allow anybody to pick up their syllabus, to pick up their specification and say, okay, how am I decoding it? How am I actually answering that? Where do I go to get the information I need? How do I practice applying the information I need?
Yeah, I think the thesis behind it really is that an academic subject, like at its core, has like a nature to it. Like my subject, geography, you know, you study it through case studies. Well, there's theory and there's case studies, and that's going to be the same no matter what kind of jurisdiction you're under for exams. And there is an approach to learning that material that will work, you know, wherever you're studying, whether you're doing GCSE, IB, Scottish Highers, you know, whatever you're doing. And that's really the thesis. And we do talk about GCSEs and A-levels because that's the majority of the people that join us, but there is something useful to be gained for anybody from looking at these masterclasses. And the study skills modules are useful for anybody in any jurisdiction. And we've had people do them in Spain, France, Ireland, New Zealand, you know, people doing the IB, you know, as well as GCSEs and A-levels, all of which have, you know, really appreciated the help that is given them.
Okay. Now, first of all, for the people who are putting lovely things in the chat, thank you for your kind words. For the people who have put a question in, I haven't missed them. I'm kind of trying to group things as we're going along. So just kind of going up to the two questions we had slightly earlier. One is a practical question in terms of, if you join the club, can you try it out paying monthly and then change to an annual fee? How does the kind of payment scheme work?
Yeah, you're very welcome to do that. And, you know, we would advise you to do that if you just want to dip your toe in, or if you're saying to a teenager, you know, let's just see what this is all about. And you don't want to make them feel like you're making too much of a commitment before they're fully bought in. That is a very good idea. And the way that the software that runs the site works is, if you upgrade before that period, before that initial month is over, it will kind of, you know, balance out the money so that you're not losing out, basically. So that's absolutely fine.
And a practical question, kind of flipping into another aspect, is how do mixed year groups work on the chat?
It generally works very well, and it's actually really nice because often in schools, year groups don't mix very much unless you've got vertical tutor groups, which I think are phasing out a bit. But I've often found that, you know, you'll say to the sixth formers, you know, what advice would you give to this year 10, or what mistakes would you avoid making, and they'll share their knowledge and that kind of thing. And it's just, and their experience, and it's just that really nice vibe between groups. We are looking at introducing kind of key stage 4, key stage 5, so GCSE A-level specific Q&A calls, maybe once a month, but we'll just have to look at the numbers and just see whether we've got the numbers to justify putting that extra date in the calendar. But we've never really had a problem with it. And, you know, we have people from year 7 sometimes up to year 13. You know, the group is aimed at years 10 to 13, but we have got some younger members. We get all of them turning up at the calls, and everybody gets something beneficial from it.
We did have a question earlier on in the session that said, is this suitable for somebody who's in year 9? And the answer I gave in the chat, which you may have seen, was it is because you've got a lot of students starting GCSE courses, or at least really starting to lay that foundation, even if the school isn't saying, you know, you're starting your course now. So it's getting those habits, that consolidation, the revisiting, the rolling kind of program going for them, which will kind of create those habits to then embed themselves when you're moving into the year 10, year 11 onwards. One person who was completely correct said that, am I right in thinking parent and child do alternate weeks of group sessions?
Yeah, very occasionally we'll do a joint session, and we will often do that you know, just at the beginning of a term, like when we've had a lot of people join recently, just to make sure everybody's comfortable. Or if something dramatic happens, as has been wont to happen in the last 2 school years, we might have a joint session because it just seems like the most appropriate thing to get everybody together. But in general, it alternates between the two. Oh, and in quieter times of year. So, you know, late in the school year, we often get fewer people coming. So we open it up to everybody every time, just to make it so that it's worth putting on, really.
Lucy won't tell you this, but during recent events, she was doing a really good line in supportive Facebook Live broadcasts when it felt like the education world was in a complete state of turmoil. She would just jump on Facebook and say, okay, this is what's come out, this is what it means, this is how you can kind of protect your child's position, they should carry on doing this, you know, we're waiting, we're expecting this. And they were kind of rolling crisis updates throughout the kind of early days of lockdown or so.
We hope that is all.
We absolutely do hope it's over. One person, just I think you can deal with this fairly quickly, Lucy, said, do you do A-level geography? I thought I'd read somewhere that you did. What's your connection with geography there, Lucy?
My connection with geography is that I studied geography at university and I was a geography teacher, and I should be getting on to creating a geography masterclass or finding somebody who's a bit more up to date, because I've been doing this for so long. I haven't actually been teaching it for a while, but I did the geography GCSE masterclass in the club. So I am a geographer in my heart.
In terms of our comments about masterclasses and adding to the masterclasses, as we've just heard Lucy say, you know, it's on the list. So.
It is on the list. Sociology and politics A-levels are on the list. RE GCSE and RE A-level, or whatever the RE is at that level, is on the list. I'm very keen to get somebody in to talk about art, mainly because of the time management aspect of art, because art gobbles up time. And I want an expert on art to come in to talk about reasonably how much time people should be spending on that, so as they don't sacrifice other subjects. So those are the things that are hot on my list for this coming academic year.
Okay, I think I'm just going to scan through the chat whilst you carry on, Lucy, but I think we're at a point where we can move on, and please be reassured that if you think of a question and put it in the chat, I will be kind of curating them and putting them in at our next questions break.
Okay, brilliant. And Helen, can I just ask you to keep an eye on the participants, because I just let 3 more people in, so if anybody else pops up.
Yeah, absolutely, consider it done. Right.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's all about the club, and that is the foundation of all the study skills support that we give. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit now is the one-to-one coaching. So, oh, is that the next slide? Just a second. Okay, yes, sorry. Okay, so one-to-one academic coaching is for those who need one-to-one support and intervention, or you don't just have to need it, you might like it. And all the one-to-one clients have access to all aspects of the Extraordinaries Club. So a recent client we've had, the mum said, the coaching and guidance provided by Zoe, who's one of our coaches, it has enabled her to see beyond the problems she has now to a future where she has potential to achieve and understand ways in which she can reach that future. There comes a point with teenagers where they no longer believe, whether that is true or not, that their parents know the answers. Zoe has helped bridge that gap for us. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the different packages that we have for one-to-one coaching, and that starts with a one-off call. So it's a 1-hour call. We call it Sort Your Studies, and it's for people who need a one-off deep dive to help them move forward when they're stuck. They also get 1 month's access to the club, and it's suitable for people who are temporarily overwhelmed in an urgent situation and they need to move forward. They have some kind of mindset or motivation block of some kind, and people who are going to be open and honest in the first call. So something that we often find is that students don't really open up to the coach until the 4th call. And I suppose that part of that is natural hesitation and reticence. But if you're just having one call, you've got to have that commitment that you are, going to spill it all out so that we can really get to the bottom of things and sort it out. Is there anything you want to add about the one call thing, Helen?
I think when I've done the one-to-one, the sort your studies calls out, what they've been useful for is some very quick kind of diagnostic advice, in terms of somebody's come to us because something's gone wrong sometimes, or they're not getting the results that they want for the time. And we can start to kind of ask questions, say, okay, what are you doing? How's your approach? Okay, try this, try this. So it's a very condensed form of, okay, here's why I think what you're doing isn't working, or you might be getting frustrated, or you might losing focus. Try this for this reason. So it's a very kind of hands-on, kind of human, I think, right, look, this is the problem you come to, go and do this, try and do this, let's write this down, make a list of these things, go and try them. So it really has kind of, I think, helped some students who have just had the, am I doing it right? Why is this not working? How do I just manage this time? How do I stop this kind of flood of panic, really?
Yeah, and I've done them as well, where you just literally sit and make a plan. So I remember one girl going in from year 12 into year 13, and she had a load of work to do over the summer, and we just sat there in July and made a plan, and she went away reassured that she could get done what she had to get done, rather than feeling utterly overwhelmed by everything. So it really depends on the situation, but we do our best to send you away. Yeah.
With one of the questions in the chat, and I think it comes into this, and it could come into the kind of longer coaching courses. Somebody's asked, in a one-to-one call, would the coaching expert be able to give advice or help out on choosing A-level subjects?
Yes. So we do that on the group coaching calls in the club sometimes as well. So definitely, we can give you guidance, we can give you help, we can help you think it through. So yeah, definitely.
It's very much a kind of the bespoke, what does this student need at this particular time? So I've had calls where it's kind of ranged from, okay, use these revision tips, to you believe there's this particular issue in school, okay, try these things to sort it out. Let's actually draft that email to that teacher, bouncing to go and ask yourself these questions, go and look at this website, let's find a website that answers this question now. So
it's got a very much a problem solving focus, the coaching, hasn't it? It's just like, let's get this problem solved, or even anticipate upcoming problems, and how can we stop it from being a stressful time, and that kind of thing. So it's very problem
on the stressful time kind of thing. One person says, if you do a one-to-one studies call, can that be done if they've had a couple of coaching sessions and they feel more comfortable? The idea of talking to a kind of adult one-to-one like that and making sure the student's comfortable is one thing that we really do think is very important, because as Lucy said, it can be quite intense for them, and I've been brought on this call, or I've been recommended that I do this. I've found that when we've spoken to people in slightly more detail on the one-to-one coaching call, the discovery calls to talk about your particular needs, then I've sometimes suggested, well, let's set up a kind of quick 10-minute chat with the person who, we're recommending as the coach. So they can, your child can see that this person's there. And it's not a kind of big, right, sit down and answer all these questions. It really is a kind of chat to see if that connection's made and they get on. It might be that you can see some of the work that some of the coaches have done in the club on the masterclasses. So for example, Artie has done the biology masterclass, Zoe's done the history A-level masterclass, I've done the English one. We've also got a page, which I'm sure Lucy's got on a slide somewhere, where there's a meet the coaches side of things, where we've all recorded an interview podcast with Lucy, so you can actually hear Carolyn talking about why she got into coaching, or Zoe talking about why she's doing it, or me talking about what I would hope to achieve with coaching. And sometimes students will listen to those if they kind of, something in somebody's biography will stand out, or listen to a podcast and think, okay, I'd like to kind of you know, try going with that person. So really a lot of it is talk to us and see what we can do to make your child feel that that's right, that's something that would work.
And that is something that's really important to us, that they're comfortable, because it's actually a bit miserable for us as well if they're not comfortable with the situation. So that's something we're really concerned about. And well, the other thing I was going to say, some of you may have heard it already, but this week I've published a podcast called How to Get the Most Out of Academic Coaching, and that talks through some of the problems and issues that we've faced over the years, and you know, just bringing that out in the open. And that's something that you could listen to or read with your child before their coaching, so that they can be really sure that they are up for it and it's worth the time and the money, basically. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Is that all right, Helen?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is a 6-call package, and we've actually just tweaked this and updated it based on feedback of past clients. So this option is for you if your child needs a kickstart to their study habits with some focused one-to-one support. It's similar to Sort Your Studies, but if you just think your child needs a bit more time than an hour. It's not for people who need long-term support with issues like mindset, motivation, and organisation. It's more like a reset than long-term support. You get the 6 coaching sessions and you get 6 months access to the club. And that's what's really changed. It used to be 3 months, and we were finding people just didn't have the space in their diaries to use the 6 sessions in the 3 months when they were coming to us with this kind of level of need. So we've extended it to 6 months. And you've also got that backup of the club. So you've got the one-to-one, but you've got the backup of the club as well. And I'm hoping that's going to, you know, be a lot more appropriate to the kind of people who come to us and want that kind of support. Move on. Yep. Okay, so this is from Rosie, who worked with Helen and on a 6-call package. And she said, thank you very much for making me stick to deadlines and helping me understand how to work more efficiently. I've become much better at prioritising my work and not faffing with useless matters, well, not pressing at least. On that note, for my maths reset, my grade was changed from a C to an A. The exam I did went well, even though it wasn't the most difficult set of questions. I felt whilst doing it very calm, and that I actually knew I could answer these questions if I didn't rush. My success is carrying on, as on parents' evening, my teacher said that the A is now a very certain possibility if I keep up the hard work. So I was over the moon with that. And
she did get the A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She did really well, didn't she? She got into Durham, I think. So that was a great success. Okay, the next package is monthly calls. So these are for students who need a little bit of extra help, encouragement and support to keep them on track with completing the modules in the club, using the resources inside the club, and actually getting the work done for their exams. It's generally students who are a bit more proactive, but just need a sounding board to keep them on track. So the kind of students we've had with this have generally been more naturally motivated, but I'd say maybe a bit more anxious. And so they're doing quite well, but they just need somebody to kind of sanity check them and help them anticipate upcoming problems and just, you know, keep them on track. Is that how you describe it, Helen?
Yes, I think there's also been a relationship, I think, between the 6 calls and the monthly call package. So I've certainly worked with a lot of clients who've started off with the kind of 6 calls, and it's been that, as you said, the kind of reset side of things. And then at the end of that, they've switched over to the monthly, just so they've got somebody to check in with. So they've got somebody to kind of, one of my students used to call it processing. I just need to kind of process what's happened and go through and sort my schedules out and sort what I need to do. So it's very much a kind of maintaining the habits, kind of bouncing ideas around, making sure kind of those ideas become ingrained rather than kind of sliding away over time, and just being there as the voice that they can kind of listen to, or the person they can talk to go through some ideas and suggestions with them as well.
Yeah. And then, oh, this is somebody who worked with Helen. So they said, through one-to-one coaching, Helen has been able to build up a really strong, trusting relationship with our son, where he is encouraged to challenge his own thinking, develop new study skills, and essentially feel like Helen has his best interest at heart to get the most from his school career.
And so that actually ties in really well with a question that I've just had as a private message that just says, do monthly calls suit year 9? Now, this particular student who's quoted on this slide is actually just starting year 9. So I worked with him kind of at the end of his year 7 through his year 8. And what he wanted to do was not only kind of get that basis for his study skills, for really good habits, for consolidating, for note-taking, for organising himself, but also to keep himself interested and motivated and get the most out of his learning as well. So we were looking at all sorts of things he could do. I'm studying this in school. Okay, well, have you thought of connecting it to this? Have you thought of going and kind of comparing it to this? Well, why don't you look at that? And he really did kind of run with the idea of, yes, I would like to take that on board. I'm going to look at that little independent question you've set me and come back and tell you about it next call. And that bounced kind of month to month. And so by the end of it, not only had he done a lot, but actually I'd learned a lot. I'd learned how to pimp out a remote control car at one point, because he decided he was going to apply some of his design and his science, and that was how we brought those together. And I challenged him to talk for 3 minutes on how he'd do it. So I mean, that's another example of how bespoke it can be. You know, that maybe wasn't somebody who was just exam, need this exam, look at the syllabus, do. We really did work it to kind of give him the best best experience that he had. And the other part of the question is, does the price include monthly club meetings as well? Yes, it does.
Yeah, so any of the one-to-one coaching, you get everything in the club that you get for standard membership. Yeah. So the last thing is weekly calls. So this is if you really want your child to have a very bespoke, personalised experience. Well, kind of everybody gets that anyway, but it's
a more frequent personalised experience,
basically. And it's really, I'd say accountability is the big thing. Everybody gets accountability, but if you just feel like, I don't know, we come across a few slippery characters, and if you want that, if you feel like you've got one of them on your hands and you need somebody else to kind of pin them down, then this is ideal. You get 24 calls through the academic year with this, and it's been designed to last over 10 months. So that's basically September to June. You can start it at any time, and you can pause it at any time, but it's been designed to last over 10 months. And we've actually also brought in an annual payment where you get a significant discount if you want to do that as well. And a brilliant review from Carolyn. This client of hers said, the academic coaching has been so successful for our son Sam. He has been able to exceed our academic expectations with Carolyn's support. And actually, he was a year 13 student, and he got into a very competitive engineering course, and the grades for this course were, I think everybody thought they were just slightly out of his reach, but he got them and he got in, and, you know, exceeded everybody's expectations, which is something that we love to hear. Okay,
go on.
What I was going to say, I think that's everything.
Okay. I was just going to add to the Sam thing that actually Sam was a good example of the club providing support, as well as Carolyn providing that excellent support, because there were certain aspects of Sam's personal statement that he wanted help with at one point. So he had a session with me. We've had previous clients who we've realized that there is just a little area of expertise with one of the other coaches. So we've been able to kind of bring in that for one call, half a call or so. So there's that kind of flexibility of, we all know each other's strengths and we all know each other and can say, you know, I've got this really lovely young man or this young lady who, you know, would really benefit from half an hour just running through this with you. Would that be okay? So
yeah, so we can be very flexible when needed. Okay, so I feel like I've done a lot of talking now. So has anybody got any questions? I really want everybody to go away with their questions answered today. That was my goal for this. and ask questions about the club, or if you've got questions about other things. We've stuck to talking about the study skills stuff because that's what everybody said they wanted to hear about at the beginning. But if anybody's got,
we've just had an influx. I think everybody hit send at the same time. So have we had many children with dyslexia and dyspraxia?
Yes, we have. So the young man who I told you about earlier on, whose GCSE results I just shared, where is he? Here, this one who got 4 9s, 2 8s and 4 7s, he was dyslexic. We had another girl who was dyslexic this year who French was a particular struggle for her, and she had a mindset problem with it as well, and we worked on that, and she did the How to Revise French masterclass, and she actually got moved up from the foundation paper to the higher paper, and she increased the marks that she was getting by over 50% almost in a week just by using those resources. And we've had dyspraxic students in the past as well who have you know, done much better than they expected to because of the help that we've given them. So yeah.
We've got 2 timing questions which I'll kind of run together slightly. One is, do we sign up at certain times to follow the modules together? And the second one is, does the club just run during term time? So how does it work practically from those perspectives?
Okay, so with the modules, you can start them at any point during the year, but we do 2 what I call live run-throughs. One starting in September and one starting in January. And what that means is that every Saturday morning, you'll get an email at 7 a.m. You don't have to be up, but that's just when it arrives. And that's got a link to that week's module. All the modules are pre-recorded, so you can do the module at any time to your convenience as a family. And there's lovely stories of people, you know, sitting down for a special breakfast on a Sunday morning and doing the module as a family together, maybe having croissant or something like that, which just sounds, you know, delightful, really. So we do that from September and then again from January. And lots of people say they like the accountability of doing it when the whole club's working through it. You can join at any time and start the modules at any time. You can go through them faster if you want to, or you can go through them slower if you prefer. If you join at a different time, you can get emails weekly and you just have to sign up for them in the club, and you'll just get an email that has the link to that week's module. So that's how that works. So, and the other part was,
does the club just run during term time?
Well, we have coaching calls only through during term time, but all the modules, all the masterclasses, all the other resources are available all the time. So, you know, lots of people have been working on things through the summer holidays. So, for example, we've got a Start the Sixth Form Right masterclass, and people have been doing that over the summer as they're about to start the sixth form. I've just added this month 4 videos called What to Expect in Year, and that's for 10, 11, 12 and 13. So that's for families to watch to really understand what's coming up this year and how to be properly prepared for what they can expect in the coming year. We do, like in the summer, I'm putting on 2 Q&A calls for people to come along to. So it's basically term time, but it doesn't completely go away. And you can access all the resources all the time, basically.
And the one-to-one coaching, it really depends in terms of whether or not your coach is going on holiday. I think is the human side of it. So, for example, this year I've been around all the way over the summer. We've had a couple of coaches take a week's holiday here and there, and really that's the conversation that you have with us, kind of in terms of, right, when does this time work for you? Because with it being one-to-one, obviously we can sort it out at a mutually convenient time. On the timing thing, a question that says, if you join outside September or January, how does that work with the weekly calls? Will we be out of sync?
It depends on how you do the modules, and I don't think it matters that much. I mean, I'm fairly certain that people come along to the weekly calls not having done the module yet, but they still get a lot out of the calls. So I suppose that's another useful thing to say. You don't have to use every aspect of the club. So some people listen and they're like, oh, it sounds so much, it's going to take up so much time, it's a bit scary. But actually the best way to use the club is to use the bits that are useful for you. But yeah, the school calls will maybe slightly out of sync, but that doesn't stop them from being useful at all. So I wouldn't let that stop you.
So we've got 3 questions left in the chat. One is a question in terms of how many children with ADHD have you worked with? What's the track record there?
We've had a fair number with ADHD, children with all these learning differences. They're all very different. It's very difficult to say, yes, we do kids with ADHD, but we've had quite a lot of them come through and we have been able to help them, but it really depends on exactly what they're like. But I'm confident that we have got stuff in there that will help. Yeah.
And for the people who are just sending direct messages, I'm just kind of grouping them together. So the first one is, we mentioned a video to show children to encourage them to join. How are parents able to access that after the call?
I will send you the link tomorrow. So I'll send an email out to everybody tomorrow who signed up with the link to that video. Yeah, and I hope that's all right.
And then the final question I think I've got in the chat, which is a gloriously practical one, is how do we sign up, please? Because we'd like to start in September at the start of term. And I promise that one's not a plant. Okay.
So for the Extraordinaries Club, you just go to theextraordinariesclub.com. Let me just get the link and you sign up on that page. And if you want one-to-one coaching, if you go to lifemoreextraordinary.com and click on the work with me tab, I'm just trying to find the right page so I can put that in the chat as well. Yes, here it is. And there, so that's for the one-to-one coaching. So you just go to those pages and follow the instructions, basically.
Okay. And another very relevant question that's come up: would the one-to-one coaches be able to discuss handling stress from exams?
Yes, that's bread and butter.
It really is. We kind of, there are different levels of anxiety, different ways it manifests itself, different advice that different students need. But we've all worked or are working as teachers. We've all seen this kind of through different students. We've all helped different students out. We all have an interest in learning metacognition, kind of thinking, and really empowering students. So yeah, we are all kind of more than happy to go through those techniques.
The other thing before we wind up, I just wanted to say, somebody said something about September and January. I know you probably think that I would say this, but I would say sign up in September rather than leaving it till January. And this is for a very good reason. It's because if you sign up in September, you have so much more space and time to learn the stuff and then implement it. The people who sign up in January invariably say to me they wish they'd signed up sooner. And it just makes me so sad, because at this time of year, I'm always like, sign up now, because it's going to be so much more useful to you. But, more people come to us in January generally. So,
and adding to that, I say a lot of the students I've been working with this summer have been year 10 students or year 12 students who have just not got the result they wanted in their end of year exams. And so we've used those kind of 6 calls really to kind of do it. Okay, how do we get this into much better shape over the summer so they can go in equipped for the next school year? And obviously that's then year 11, year 13. I know we had somebody in the chat before saying, is it too late to sign up in year if they're starting year 11 now? It absolutely isn't, because the idea is efficiency and good habits and effective revision. So from that perspective, it's never too late. But if you're thinking, oh, I'm in my child's in year 10, I'll wait and see year 11, actually, it's probably better to do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and we're on it. We really are not saying that. We're doing it with everybody's best interests at heart, because it just breaks my heart every year when people are like, we wish we signed up sooner. We signed up a bit too late, really. You know, it's never too late, but there's time to sign up to get the most benefit from it.
And in amongst the nice words and the thank yous at getting, just seen a very good question. Does one monthly membership to the club mean both my children can access the resources?
Yes, so one membership covers up to 5 members of your household, and you can all have your own logons as well for that one payment. Yeah. I think we've probably kept everybody for long enough.
Yeah, and I think we have worked our way through the questions in the chat. So
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. If you think of any other questions, just let us know. I will be delighted to answer your questions. If you want one-to-one, book your call with Helen so that you can talk to her about your specific circumstances.
I would also say, if you can't see a gap in the timetable for that, because there are various kinds of things happening, do just email me, right? I can jig things around, I can work things, I can definitely find a time. Don't look and think, oh, there's nothing in the next 3 days or so. Email us, okay? Well, I will get that in.
But I will send an email out tomorrow with that blog I mentioned, and there's a couple of other things I can send you as well, which might be helpful. So yeah, no need to feel anxious about year 10 or any other year. We are here to help you, and I promise you it will soothe those stressed and anxious minds. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and thank you so much for your time. Goodbye, and yeah, we really hope to get to know you better.
Okay, all right.
Bye.
Bye now.
Where do you go to book a call with Helen? You go to the study skills coaching page, that page.
Okay, I don't know, has that just gone into the chat? Can you maybe put it into the chat again, just so?
It says everyone in waiting room.
Oh no, that's that will be just everybody, I think, is leaving out. Hang on, if you want to know where to go to book a call with me, let me get the link for you. If you just stay there for 1 second. I'm gonna just do.
Oh, I think they've got it, Helen.
Oh, right, is that okay? I will just grab it and come back. I think that should be on there. If you follow the academic coaching, there are a series of buttons, and if all else fails, if calendar looks full, just email me. Okay, you can email via the site.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to end the meeting now, but thank you everybody for your time. Bye-bye.